Let's ask, I call it the new axis of evil, China, Russia, Iran.
Yeah.
How big a threat?
It's huge. It's the biggest threat. Since World War II, we have been the big kid on the block, right? We're the last real superpower. And after the USSR fell, we've been unrivaled. Now, China is a near peer-to-peer adversary to us now. And of course, their goal is to rebuild the empire. And so we're doing everything we can to ensure that we maintain our military superiority. We're the only nation that has the ability to project power and force like that around the globe right now, but China is doing its best to encroach upon that power. And you see they're even putting outposts around us. They're buying up farmland in states here in the U.S. All of these things have to be addressed at the federal level, at the state level, with the legislatures, and even in some of these localities. We have Chinese CCP-owned companies that are coming in and open shop on Main Street in some towns, in our small towns.
They're buying our farmland.
Yes.
They're buying our ranch land, and they're buying land near military installations.
Yes.
Would we be allowed to buy it there?
Of course not.
Of course not.
Of course not. And they allowed a Chinese spy balloon to float unimpeded across the country for 8 days. We scratch our heads a lot around here about these Biden decisions, and I don't know, it may be tied in some way to, I don't know, some of the money they receive from some of these folks.
Well, you are on the House Judiciary Committee.
Yes.
We've been watching the House Oversight Committee with James Comer.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, there's issues involving two congressmen in particular, a Democrat and a Republican. George Santos, the Republican, many charges have been filed against him. And then the issue of Congresswoman Tlaib and others, and this talk of censure and talk of removal. Do you support either?
We're working through those issues. I'll tell you, I talked to the authors of some of these resolutions today that want to deal with that. Here's the reality, Sean. We have a 4-seat majority in the House. It is possible that that number may be reduced even more in the coming weeks and months, and so we'll have what may be the most razor-thin majority in the history of the Congress. We have no margin for error, and so George Santos is due process, right? He is, my understanding is, I think he's appearing in a federal court tomorrow, and we have to allow due process to play itself out. That's what our system of justice is for.
He's not convicted, he's charged.
Not convicted, he's charged. And so if we're going to expel people from Congress just because they're charged with a crime, then, or accused, that's a problem.
Joe Biden has allowed over 7.5 million people into this country illegally. It'll be probably over 8 million. Even people on terror watch lists, even people from countries like Iran and Syria. How do you get the border secure? And what is your assessment of Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas? Should he be impeached?
Listen, you know that my duties here have included Judiciary and the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. In my assessment, almost every federal agency under the Biden administration has been weaponized. The very agencies that were designed to protect and serve the people are now being used against them, and we have many examples of that, and you've talked about all of it on your show before. Look, Mayorkas has been an abject failure in his position. I believe he has committed impeachable offenses, and I've been on record saying that for a long, long time. In fact, he appeared in an oversight hearing in our House Judiciary Committee. We have jurisdiction over his department. Less than 4 months into office, and I saw where this was headed, and I told him in a clip that went viral, Mr. Mayorkas, you need to get your resume prepared, because I thought he was headed towards a dead end on this. Look, the investigations are going forward. Jamie Comer and the Oversight Committee are doing an exceptional job. Jim Jordan, who's the chairman of Judiciary, has helped lead on that. We've gotten a lot of information on all these issues.
Well, you're on the Judiciary Committee. Let me ask you,
yeah.
Do you believe that Joe Biden's Department of Justice, do you believe our FBI has been politicized? Do you believe it's been weaponized? Do we have a dual justice system?
Absolutely. We have a two-tiered system of justice, and that erodes the people's faith in our system of justice itself. And this is what I reminded Merrick Garland when he was in front of us, the Attorney General, Christopher Wray at the FBI. The greatest threat here is not these individual issues. It's that the people are losing their faith in our system of justice. And Sean, you cannot maintain a constitutional republic, a government of, by, and for the people, if the people doubt that the system is fair. If they believe there's two tiers of justice, then the system doesn't work at all. And so I think Garland's been a great threat. I think he's the worst Attorney General in the history of the United States.
Joe Biden swore to the American people, both as a candidate and as president. Not one time did he ever speak to his son, his brother, or anybody for that matter about their foreign business dealings. We know that is a flat-out lie. We've learned from James Comer and his investigation that we are talking about tens of millions of dollars taken in from a lot of adversarial countries, some of our top geopolitical foes like China, Russia, Ukraine. Romania, Mexico, other countries, tens of millions. They've discovered all of these shell corporations. They've discovered 9 particular Biden family members have been paid. And then you have the issue of Joe on tape admitting that he used our money, taxpayer money, to leverage $1 billion in loan guarantees, which was Obama administration policy to fire a prosecutor investigating his son. Well, one of the benefits of that, his son continued to get paid for a job he admits he had no experience in at a time where he was dealing with a drug problem. What does that sound like to you?
That's a pretty good recitation of the facts. And as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. They're hard to ignore. I believe the documents are proving all that. As my good brother Jamie Comer often says, the bank records don't lie. So we have the receipts on so much of this now. It's a real problem. That's the reason that we shifted into the impeachment inquiry stage on the president himself. Because if in fact all the evidence leads to where we believe it will, that's very likely impeachable offenses. You know, that's listed as a cause for impeachment in the Constitution. You know, bribery and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Bribery is listed there, and it looks and smells a lot like that. And I think the evidence, we're going to follow the truth where it leads. We're going to engage in due process because, again, we're the rule of law party. I know people are getting anxious and they're getting restless and they just want somebody to be impeached, but that's not. We don't do that like the other team. We have to base it upon the evidence, and the evidence is coming together. We'll see where it leads.
Let me go back to the budget, if I may, for a second. This whole issue of regular order. We have 4 of the 12 appropriations bills that have already been dealt with. My understanding is that's about 70% of the budget.
Yep.
So you have 8 more to go. You've talked about a short-term CR that you would be willing to maybe have until January or maybe even to April. Would there be, we talk about a clean CR. Would you have conditions? For example, Chip Roy and Byron Donalds had a plan. Okay, well, we'll give you a CR, but it's not going to be clean. We're going to cut government spending by 8%, and we're going to secure the border and protect our military and veterans. Would you have conditions to a CR?
I think we have to, if indeed we do that. November 17th, of course, is the deadline that was extended.
You've got about
it's coming quickly.
21 days.
And we're speeding it up as quickly as possible. That was my commitment to my colleagues when they named me Speaker of the House, and that work began today. In fact, we passed one of the approach bills just a couple of hours ago before you arrived here. We got it off the House floor, the energy and water bill. That was a big box that we had to check, and we did that. And so we're going forward. Chip and Byron are at the table with others. We're working through this with the ideas and trying to ensure that if another stopgap measure is required, that we do it with certain conditions. And I think there will be conditions the American people can live with and a consensus that we can build around here in the House.
Let me ask you this. We have 2/3 of this country now are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
Many of those people can't afford bare necessities. I know Biden's been crowing about Bidenomics. I know they got good numbers today. However, a lot of economists I spoke to earlier today, this doesn't look good at all. They think we're in a bubble that is about to burst, and it's going to be even worse, especially in the housing market. It's new home construction is stopping, sale of pre-existing homes, a disaster. How bad is this economy? How long can we sustain another, $2 trillion in debt that Joe Biden took on last year? And how do we get inflation down once and for all? I have friends of mine just 3 years ago. They were getting interest rates at a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 30%. Right. Now it averages 8%. Nobody's going to sell their home and buy another home at that because it's thousands of dollars more for the same type of home.
It grinds the economy to a halt. It's a disaster. That's the word you use, and that's the appropriate word. These are policy choices that got us in this situation. If you remember, if you rewind in your mind back to right before the pandemic began, in the Trump administration, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. And it wasn't by happenstance. It's because we cut taxes, cut regulations. We focused on American energy dominance. We were doing and following all the policies that led to economic success and growth for all Americans, everyone in every demographic. All boats were rising. We can achieve that again, but you have to do almost exactly the opposite of what the Biden administration is pursuing and doing. This is not rocket science, but we're so far down the road now that we have to make these changes quickly.